Welcome to Choreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adron Buskey. And in this episode, we are talking about the Grand Prix de France 2025, the first Grand Prix event in this Olympic season. And
there's a lot.
There's a lot to cover here. And this is certainly one of those events where there are some big highs and some big question marks, and it's going to have people talking about it for a while. It was a lot. I'm very excited to have the Grand Prix upon us.
Yes, very much so.
The events are, even though it's a lot of skating, it's just more concise and put together.
And it feels bigger. It feels like everything is just elevated, including the crowd, where I felt like there was the first time this season we've seen a really big crowd, a really excited crowd, and that alone made it more exciting to watch.
This was held in Angers, France.
Angers,
France. It looks like Angers, and there's definitely some Angers from the online community after this one was over.
Oh my gosh.
Sure. But beautiful venue, great crowd turnout, pretty enthusiastic crowd in general. It was nice to see that. I have an asterisk on the crowd thing just because I have a little bit of a question mark around their giant cutouts of heads that I thought in general were very cool, but the way that they were displayed during other skaters' skates during the ice dance event, where there was literally like just giant French heads facing out towards the performers, that I just found a little bit in poor taste. And
I just don't know where they would have put them. I guess they could have turned them around if they were not on both sides.
And that's what happened later, is that you would see that they'd be turned around so the back of it, the white side would be faced out towards the ice. But it was like you had non-French ice dancers on the ice and then like a giant low face facing out at them, and also an atom, but that doesn't feel as pointed in that particular event. And it just really felt like a mistake, something that somebody didn't consider, but it was a thing that I didn't like to see. But in general, on our end of things, after what, without a lot of details, I would say has just been a pretty rough week for me, I was just happy to be able to be at home and to be able to watch all of this skating. And we didn't see any of it in real time. We were always kind of catching up with it. We were seeing internet reaction before we were seeing the actual skates, and then trying to like control our own reactions to it without having it too colored by all that stuff that we found out ahead of time.
I feel like it's better for us to just jump in instead of alluding to things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of alluding.
Yeah.
Let's just jump into the most chaotic of all disciplines. As always, that would be ice dance. And in this case, extra chaotic, but was not necessarily expecting the first competition out the gate to be won by France's Laurence Fournier-Beaudry and Guignard and Cizeron, but not totally surprised either.
So when you say chaotic, I mean, I think ice dance is kind of weird in that usually it's the most stable of the placements, with caveats, but like generally speaking, the conversation is always about waiting your turn, going to the hierarchy. The same teams get elevated all the time. Even when skaters have magnificent performances, they still don't always rise. So when you get the occasional, like last year at Worlds, where we saw Olivia Smart and Tim Deek take third in the free at Worlds, like as a team that had only been together for 2 years and were more of a middle of the pack team that was just sort of rising, it was like really surprising. And I think in general, the fandom gets very frustrated at how much the status quo seems to be held quo by the judges. And I think a lot of times people are looking for shakeups, but then sometimes when the shakeups happen, it feels really questionable. And I think this is one of those moments where I can't necessarily disagree with the placements, but the scoring feels real out of whack.
Completely out of whack. And when I say chaotic for ice dance, I more mean politically.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's not necessarily everything on the ice. It's what leads to it.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's politics. It's how often the scores feel like it's just vote trading. It's all of the years and years and years of corruption that has influenced it. The perceived thumb on the scale from IAM, the International Ice Academy in Montreal, all of those things. Yeah.
In general, it's everyone who's been a world medalist tends to get a little bump in their scores. Even if they have mistakes, it kind of gets brushed past to maintain that stability of stature and status that you were describing that does keep placements so steady. That said, Here, we saw the just bluntly controversial return of Laurence Fournier-Beaudry and Guillaume Cizeron, a new team that we've only seen once in a French competition only, so nothing international yet. So we really didn't know how they were going to fare against other, particularly European teams here, which included Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson, Alison Reed and Saulius Ambrelivicius, and most controversially in terms of the scoring here, Charline Guignard and Marco Fabbri, who have been world medalists multiple times in the past quadrennial.
Yeah. So let's set some ground rules for our discussion here.
Okay.
One, when we talk about Laurence Fournier-Beaudry and Guillaume Cizeron, who we will also refer to as Lolo and Guy or Guilo, which seems to be the kind of general accepted name like right now is Guilo. There's a lot of controversy about how that team came together, her coming from her previous partnership and him coming from his. And there is exterior issues around all of that, not even held into the recent past, but into this weekend, as far as how the French Federation talks about him and the breakup of his partnership with Gabrielle Papadakis and how it whitewashes her exit from that particular partnership.
And for which I recommend for further details seeing her personal post about it, because she does describe it on Instagram.
Yes. But what I want to do here is to, as much as possible, take all of that baggage and set it aside for a moment, because with anything, it's really easy to have your subjective feelings get in the way of your enjoyment or your perception of programs. All of us are going to have that issue, right?
Of course.
It's impossible to completely remove that, but we're trying to be as objective about performance as what happens on the ice here as possible. So what we get when we get Guilo out here for the first time, they are the first team to skate in the rhythm dance, right? So the very first out in these 10 different teams competing here. The rhythm dance is different from what we saw at the Masters. They got rid of that Depeche Mode program that really looked like they were reheating the whacking program that Guillaume and Gabby had done at the last Olympics. And instead, we got a Vogue program, which much more distinctly is voguing and not whacking, uses the Madonna music really well, and I think showcases this team better by also separating itself more from that previous partnership of Guy's.
Completely agree. And I think that this program overall looked really strong, like was super intricate. Had one distinct problem, though, where Guillaume did get a deduction. I think it was sort of classified as a fall. It more was just a knee down on a move very close to the end of the program. He knew he screwed up. Like, he was very open about it.
Yeah.
And they got a 78, which was still a very strong score and kept them in third.
They were in third. Yeah.
But I will say that there is definitely room for improvement on that program, but they've probably been doing that for a month.
Yeah, because they definitely did chuck the previous one, kind of took elements from it, like changed it up. And in general, I think that was a very good choice for them strategically, because again, this doesn't look as much as like the microwave dinner version of the whacking program. It suits them better. The new outfits, I think they just got a lot of feedback on that, and they seem to have taken it to heart, and they made those changes. There is a mistake in it, and this is ice dance where like every mistake is catastrophic, right? Like it's sometimes it's frustrating to see something that's extraordinarily tiny be enough to lose a level and sometimes lose a placement. And just to have your knee go down briefly gets you a -1 deduction here, like it did for them.
But that's fair.
It's totally fair, and absolutely like how that should have shaken out. But that 78 was a very large score. And, the thing that we always see in skating is that typically the first people out suffer from lower scores because there's this sense of the scores just rising a little bit as the evening goes by.
Of course.
And that's not fair.
No.
I mean, that's an incredibly dumb thing about the way the judging works, but we see that pattern all the time, right? It's impossible not to notice it, but it clearly did not affect them.
No, not even a little bit. No.
But the bigger thing, I think, is looking at the free dance.
The free dance, yes.
Because the free dance, it's
really good.
It's really, really good.
Sometimes it is not my favorite thing to say these things because, I might prefer it not be as undeniable as it is, but it is undeniable. It's really, really good.
It looks like, to me, the platonic ideal of an ice dance free dance. It is lyrical, it is passionate, it is emotional. It has so many touches of modern dance. So if you would add something to the Adron lore, as somebody referred to, like some of my background things on a comment, which really made me laugh. Part of the Adron lore is that I have a little bit of a dance background from college, just a minute amount, but I was also, beyond taking a little bit of classes for it, I was a stage manager for dance and concert at my university. So I spent a lot of time around the modern dance students and, doing stage work and being involved in that whole kind of world. So I have a decent eye for that kind of thing. And I kept thinking during that program, I was like, the stuff that they're doing here would have made the dancers that I knew sob because they would have just loved it. Because the movements were so lyrical and so beautifully put together. This is a team that has been together less than a year, and they look like they've been skating together for a decade. It's, again, all of those other things aside that make it really hard to feel excited about this team, they're just really, really well matched.
Yeah.
And looking at the deepness of their knees, the quality of their edges and their skating skills, and
just how organic everything looks together. It's genuinely kind of astonishing in terms of the time frame they've had to build this together. It's really, really good. And again, I don't love saying it, but it is true.
Looking at their free skate here, the sparseness of the music, the way that it builds, the way that they relate to each other on the ice, it's not a flashy program. It's actually quite the opposite of it, where we have some other people here that do programs that feel more heavily lift oriented or more around big moments. This isn't a program that's built around big moments. It's built around an emotional core, or like the presentation of that emotional core, and then just like the raw beauty of two extremely well-matched people on the ice together. My feeling on it is that if you took the rhythm dance out entirely, if you just completely forgot the day before and just watched today's, you'd have no question in your mind that that program would have won.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
It's definitively the best performance of the night. I think even if you stylistically don't connect to that as much, you'd still kind of have to recognize the quality of it is super high. Where the question comes in is them being in third and rising to first, which would be completely usual in any other discipline, but not this one.
No. And then when you look at their free dance score of 133.02, which is enormous.
Colossal.
To put that into context just a little bit, I pulled the numbers, personal bests from the top two teams in the world right now. So Chalk and Bates and Gillis and Poirier. Chalk and Bates' personal best is 232.32 total, but their biggest free dance score ever was 138.41, which is monstrous and 5 points above this. However, I do recall whenever that got scored that way, people were ready to riot.
Yeah.
For Gillis and Poirier, their personal best total score, 219.68. Their personal best free, 133.17. So almost exactly this. And those are personal bests for these teams, not the first international competition free dance that they skated. So yes, we are looking at the reigning Olympic champion in Guillaume Cizeron and, arguably one of, if not the best male ice dance partner there has been. And Laurence Fournier-Beaudry, who is no slouch and an incredible ice dancer.
Well, and somebody that everybody's been saying for years should be one of the best in the world, but was saddled with a partner who wasn't as good as her.
Right. But whenever you look at that and think about it in relevance to the fact that it is the first Grand Prix, we have 5 more of these: the Grand Prix final, Europeans, French nationals, the Olympics. This is their starting point. That's a lot. And it does feel, while, yes, they definitively won the free dance, arguably the whole thing, I probably just would say I would have had it closer with Fear and Gibson, mostly because Fear and Gibson, who did get the silver here, had a much stronger rhythm dance, is where I will leave that.
Now, okay. And yeah, it gets real.
This is where it gets real muddy.
It gets muddy after this. Okay, so in second, you have Fear and Gibson, who up to this point, they'd won everything they'd competed in so far this season. I've been pretty lukewarm on their programs so far. They have that rhythm dance to the Spice Girls, which this is the best we've seen it so far.
Easily.
And they keep making iterative improvements to it.
Which is my favorite thing about this team.
And a lot of the high caliber IM teams are always changing and evolving their
All
programs.
teams. I wouldn't even give that to IM.
Yeah, but it does
everybody.
feel like a signature piece of them, like there. But yeah, everybody is always fixing their programs and trying to improve and taking judge feedback. But Lila and Lewis have changed their music multiple times and have changed the layout a few times. And there's a distinct difference in just a few competitions. I still don't like the last third of that rhythm dance. For me, it doesn't quite work. However, they performed it really, really well. They had an 84-38.
And they were crisp.
Yes, they were spot on. And notably, you could really see the improvement in Lila's positions and like the deep knee bends and just the fluidity of through there, I thought was really, really nice. Overall, I mean, them taking that top spot, not a big surprise here because they have been setting the precedent over the last couple of seasons of them moving ahead of Guignard and Fabbri, who in the past would have been sort of your core top European team.
Yes, exactly. When you move into their free dance, I think they did the best version of their Scottish themed free dance we've seen this season easily. And they scored the best that they have by about 3 points. So the judges agreed, but it still just was about a overall total about a point below Gilo. And they're so apples to oranges, these teams. They're so radically different in what they do. I don't know if that's fair or not. I do think that it was very close, obviously, but I don't think necessarily that with Guillaume's mistake in the rhythm dance and them having essentially two near perfect performances.
There's like extraordinarily minor nitpicks in the free. They're not like really mistakes. They're just things that could have been done slightly better.
Yeah, that's the only place I question, but it is close between them. I think that's correct. You could have tossed a coin between the two of them.
Sure. I do want to say one thing, though, is just looking at the score, you know, when we're talking about the totals here, Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron win with a 2:11.02. And the judges take a very long look at their free skate. The scoring takes quite a while. It's long enough that we can watch them in the kiss and cry for a long stretch and really see Guillaume is clearly having problems with his left boot and struggling to get it off because he's cramping or having some sort of issue like after it's done. Fear and Gibson also have a bit of a long run up to it. And there's a sense of watching them in the kiss and cry almost like they've already been told they're not going to win.
Or they just fully expect it. Because, well, for one, this is Grand Prix de France.
Yeah.
And he's the reigning Olympic champion. And they skated brilliantly. So, yeah, I agree. Lewis and Lila both had the face of people that knew that they were not going to take this.
Right. But they come out with a 2:10.24. So when you look at that, that is less than a point between them. And I don't know that I can disagree with Gilo winning this, but then I also look at the scores and I feel like the squeeze between those two scores is just so tiny. It just, the
excessive 133.02 feels excessive.
Right. Like it almost feels like we gave them the score that was just enough. Like, and this is like conspiracy brain, right?
I know.
This is where like, I don't want to be this kind of fan or this kind of commentator, but I can't help but sit there and go, did they cook the books just enough to give a score that would make it really close, but would still have them come out on top? Because that's what it feels like. And my feelings are not necessarily valid in there, right? Like it may have nothing to do with that, but this is ice dance.
And it makes you feel like you're crazy.
Right. And ice dance has a history of corruption and home cooking and all this kinds of manipulation. And so it's hard not to sit there and go, was that right? And I don't know. We've talked a lot about on this show. We are not ice dance judges. We are no experts in this. We're no experts at all. We're fans that are just passionate about the sport. And so it's hard to separate the emotional reaction from a complete technical evaluation.
Exactly. And that's why, especially in this episode, if you happen to be an ice dance expert and know more than we do, please share in the comments, because I am going to be doing a lot of reading this week. I know, just be out of for my own personal sanity after watching this competition, trying to figure out, okay, where did this go wrong or where did this go right? Because I want to understand if my feelings are valid, I guess is what I want to say there. However, moving us forward, I will say I feel like my feelings are valid about Allison Reed and Saulius Ambrulevicius, because I am thrilled for them, because they got a Grand Prix medal here, and I love this team, and I'm just so excited to see them skate 2 really strong programs and just look so prepared for this season. So regardless of the rest of this competition and all of my feelings about it, I am psyched for them.
Of course, the story with Reed and Amber Levisius is that they washed out of Worlds after a fall in the rhythm dance, didn't make it into the free, were not guaranteed an Olympic spot, had to spend the summer. And this is right after Allison got her Lithuanian citizenship, which,
she took so long fighting for
years trying to get so that they could pave the path to the Olympics, only to have it potentially erased by a fall at Worlds. And that put a lot of doubt over this team. However, they won the Olympic qualifier event and easily sealed the deal for them to head to the Olympics for Lithuania. And coming here in a hotly contested Grand Prix starting event, them showing up on the podium is a really great vote of confidence in them. I love this team. I love this pair in general. And I really, really like their rhythm dance. I think the I'm Too Sexy / Cantaloupe program is not going to be everybody's flavor because, the 90s was full of everything. And at least this program feels different from a lot of the other 90s choices because there's a lot of samey stuff that's been chosen by a lot of teams this season. I think they execute it so well. And they were in second after the rhythm dance, which again, a big deal. And they had an 80-98 big score. And so they were in a really, really solid place. I got to imagine they never expected that they would hold the second spot. I don't think they were surprised to get dipped down into third. A medal here is a really great outcome for them in general. I thought that they got scored really wonderfully for that free dance. I'm starting to warm up to it. I haven't loved it. I think it looks really great on them, but it's kind of like not the program I would have chosen in an Olympic season. But here, I think it looked sharper than we've seen it so far.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think they were just on all weekend. They were just on, and it was great to see.
Yeah, they just didn't leave any room for judgment. I feel like there's just...
They can't.
Yeah, they skated like they did at the Olympic qualifier and scored higher, which was basically to be as precise as possible. I think that still just leaves some space for them to give a little more freedom in those programs. But in general, I'm very happy with that result for them.
Me too. And now we get to the part that's really, really disheartening. So in fourth, we have Charlene Guignard and Marco Fabbri in their rhythm dance, which, as I have seen many, many people discussing online, a lot of people feel like it is missing the mark in terms of taste level. They skated it extremely well and got a 77.25, which is significantly lower than they typically get in a rhythm dance. And that rhythm dance had them in fifth, barely by less than a point, but they were behind Davis and Smolkin. This is the team that has been silver at Worlds before. And for reference, the rhythm dance at the World Championships, which was flawed slightly, not dramatically, but slightly, was an 83.04. This was near perfect and was a 77.25. So 6 points difference. And that 6 points in ice dance is massive.
Now, I've seen some discussion online, and I honestly couldn't figure out how to read the ice dance protocol to figure out if this is legit or not. But I've seen some mention that they got a music violation because the tempo of their songs wasn't correct. Because like the rhythm dance has very specific requirements for the beats per minute. And with so many things,
again, there's going to be a lot of research this week.
Ice dance is arcane and obtuse and really nitpicky about these kinds of things. And apparently the judges' scoring was marked with like a 3/10, meaning that they may have seen 3 different deductions or something. I couldn't figure it out. I'm only seeing people talk about this online. So take this with a full shaker of salt, right? Like, cause I don't know that this is legit, but if that was the case, that would account for a fairly significant aspect of the deduction. And that's one of those weird things that happens sometimes where it feels like, how in the world does a major competitive team get on the ice with a program that is not vetted to match the requirements of the season?
But it's not the first time we've seen that this season.
Right. Yeah. We've seen other people get it. So it is possible. I don't know. But this program feels in its personality very, very similar to last year's Rhythm Dance, despite it having a completely different time period.
Yeah.
And I think that its dance moves reflect the 90s. It definitely has the kind of boy band vibe to some of the point choreography. I think the costumes are really cute. And I think it looks super fun in them. I don't love it. It's good, but like a lot of the rhythm dances, it doesn't make me super excited. But it is difficult to look at it and say that isn't as good as other things we've seen them before, because I don't see that difference.
I think that's really where it is. It's not that, like, I can look at like the costumes and the music choice and say, okay, this isn't ideal for a team at your level. This doesn't feel like it's elevated enough for them. And that feels like such a lofty word, but it's the only one I can think of. But I agree with you. It's when you compare it to the past rhythm dances of theirs that scored significantly higher. I was so frustrated that year whenever they were doing the 80s, and I hated their music choices. I thought they were ridiculously bad and they did not make sense together. And yet they were scoring significantly higher than this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, but why was that getting a much higher score and this, as good as it was, didn't?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not comparing theirs to, say, Lila and Lewis's or Allison and Solius's. It's comparing them to them and being like, what is this? Like, how? I want to understand how.
So a conversation we were having through the whole previous season and during the summer was Guignard and Fabbri have seen a diminishment in placement over the last year and change.
For sure.
One, because Lila and Lewis, who are their direct competitors in the European side of things, have just risen very solidly over the last couple of years and become more of a marquee team. Even if their skating skills aren't as strong, they're more entertaining and they have a flexibility in personality on the ice where they can really deliver very different things. And I think sometimes Charlene and Marco's programs can feel samey. You know?
Yeah, they can.
But last year, they also gave us that robot free dance, which is fairly universally reviled.
And kind of the kickstart to their demise.
Yeah.
It sucks to say that, but it feels that way.
Yeah. I think that because they stuck with that program through the whole season, you know, they changed the outfits and they made some adjustments to it, but everybody's telling them nobody likes this program. It's losing you placements, but they stuck with it. And in the end, they fell off the podium at Worlds. And it just feels like this question of taste, right? I think this is the thing that comes up a lot with them, is that they and their coaches have not shown a taste level consistent with the rest of the field over the last couple of years. And if you want to put a message on a t-shirt that I say all the time, it's material matters. They just have chosen bad material, and that has hurt them before. Coming in here, I think that their choice of free dance is exactly what I thought they should do.
Yeah.
Which is something that is a little bit more traditional.
Very mature.
Mature, leans harder on what they do well and what they have in the past performed really well too. Musically and content wise, I think that it leans far more into what I would expect the judges to want from them. I do think though that the free dance is a little thin.
It's a little empty in places.
Yeah, it's weirdly, like, especially when you're watching some of these other programs here, there's just places where it feels like there should be a little bit more complex movements in the lifts. There should be a little bit more going on in the choreography. It just isn't quite there. And I don't know how to quantify that from a score aspect, but it just feels less than some of the other ones that we saw.
But their skating, their technical ability and what they performed was phenomenal. Their speed, their carriage across the ice, their edge work, you can't ever argue how good they are.
Right.
They are a phenomenally technical team. And with the material they had, again, this program was fantastic, but it scored a 118.73. So 2 points lower than Allison and Solius, about 7 below Lila and Lewis, and about 14 below Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron. So, I mean, just to give a little bit of framing to this, their overall score was a 195.98. Last year, at the same competition, they had what they referred to personally as the worst competition of their adult career, their senior level career. That score that they got there, total, 189.09. So 6 points less than this. that was the worst competition of their professional career.
Where they made mistakes, had errors, and looked bad. Because they did look bad at that event.
Right. So that was a 189 and this is a 195. And they were nearly flawless.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that there isn't something. I can't tell you if it's block judging. I can't tell you if it's just preferential treatment because you're in France. I don't know what it is. Or if it's, just the IM way of like everyone getting a preferential treatment because they're at IM. I don't know because I am not in that world. However, I can look at it and say, this smells bad. And I don't think anyone doesn't feel that way, at least a little bit.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate because you want to be excited at the end of an event and you want it to feel like it was fair. And it feels too inconsistent with everything that's happened before for this to shake out in this way. I think there's an interesting aspect here too, is that after their scores came out in the rhythm dance, Marco got up and just walked out of the kiss and cry. After their free dance, the two of them and their coach just got up and walked out.
And they have yet to talk to the press.
Right. Now, Charlene has shared a lot of stuff on Instagram, which very much illustrates what her thinking is.
Oh, yes.
But she's been sharing other people's takes. They have not
saying it
spoken out
herself.
themselves.
Yeah.
I think there's a very careful, we're going to watch what we're saying at the moment, but we're going to let our actions speak for it. And I do think there's an interesting little mini trend that I've seen this year, which is a little bit more open protest in the kiss and cry. We talked about this at Lombardia Trophy, where we saw a couple of different coaches openly react to the judging in a negative fashion, even down to, I think it was like Kurakova's coach standing up, giving a thumbs down to the camera after her scores, and then just walking across out of the kiss and cry in a absolute FU to the judges.
Yes.
And here you can see, as they're about to get their scores, a look on their faces that says, we know we're about to get screwed.
Yeah,
And
they didn't in the rhythm dance.
No.
In the rhythm dance, they looked completely shocked.
Yeah.
In the free dance, they all knew it was coming.
Yeah. And there was even, their coach was like, there was tears in her eyes watching them perform. And we know that she's a fierce person.
Oh, Barbara Fusar-Poli is definitely emotional.
Yeah, there's just this sense where they all sit down and they're just they're waiting for that shoe to drop. And once it does,
Marco laughs.
Like
not in a ha-ha way,
No.
in an angry way.
Yeah. And so, yeah, seeing one of the most successful ice dance teams of the last 6 years or so stand up and walk out of the kiss and cry in contempt at their score, I think it's not a small thing.
No.
Particularly for a team that, at least in my perception, always seems to be well-mannered, well-liked. Yes, they are kind of on an island in the sense that they're very separate from so many of the teams are concentrated in North America at IM and a couple of the other coaching spots. But man, it's hard to see that.
It really is. And it's, again, something that I don't know how I'm supposed to feel other than frustrated. I did see some discussion online about one ice dance is going to ice dance, and it sucks to watch it in real time because this is what deters fans. It's what loses fans.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel like, why am I even watching this when there's nothing that's perceptually fair about it? It's incredibly damning to the sport. And it's extraordinarily frustrating as someone who wants to promote it and help grow an audience for it to watch this and be like, oh, yeah, people that would watch this and not have the context that we have, how are they going to want to keep watching this?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's, once you have an awareness of how things work, you can't see it the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And so I would be curious to know what people who don't have a deeper awareness of it, if they would watch it and go, yeah, that team's just kind of okay. Because
maybe they would.
It's entirely possible that other people could watch them without any of the context of how good they typically are and just go, that team's fine, but they don't do it for me.
But that's the tricky part about ice dance.
It's all subjective in that way.
It's all subjective, but also, I think Chris Howitt said this during the commentary, is that all of these teams, all of them on paper, had technically about the same level.
In the rhythm dance, they were all right in the 30-point pocket. Yeah.
They were all kind of the same. So it's all interpretation and how well they accomplish these moves. It's all in that second score. And it's, how subjective is that? how malleable is that whenever politics are involved? I'd be very curious to hear like how a newbie would watch this with very little context. Would they just put Lyle and Lewis in first because they're the most fun? Or would they watch Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron and just be like, that's the best thing I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. So if we look at the 5th place position.
Yeah, let's keep moving.
Yeah. And we can't cover everybody in here because we've already spent like 35 minutes on just this part of the conversation, and it's a lot. But I think if you look at Diana Davis and Gleb Smolkin from Georgia here, this is their 3rd back-to-back event. They won the Deniss 10 Memorial and then won the Georgian Trialetti trophy that felt a bit home cooking in the scores in some places there, but also like very much a firm win from them. Here, I thought they still looked really strong. They made another change to the rhythm dance. So there's another musical change. So it is now all Offspring's music, which I think feels much more unified than it did before. It's definitely
more cohesive.
They've had to make changes to that to fix it up. They were in 4th after that rhythm with a 77.80. So, they were like 0.5 and change above Guignard and Fabbri. So that alone, I mean, in a previous season, if you said that Davis and Smolkin would have been above Guignard and Fabbri
without mistakes,
right? Without mistakes, without any obvious errors, I think most people would raise an eyebrow.
No way.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is a team that you want to look at the stuff outside of it. You have both, they skate for IAM now, but also this is a Thierry's daughter. And even as much as I try to separate that more and more to just kind of see Davis and Smolkin as their own team.
Because she's not coaching
them. But a Thierry's influence is something that you always kind of feel in the background, regardless, and you never know how that would affect here. But trying to ignore the feelings around that, I think that Davis and Smolkin have come a long way.
They have improved a lot.
Diana's improvement while she's been at IM is obvious. She's come a long, long way. And I think that they looked sharper here in a lot of ways than we saw them even in Georgia a week ago. Now, when we see that free dance, they come out with a free dance with a 1:16.47. And so they come in 5th and they drop below Guignard and Fabbri, which is what you would expect typically.
Yes.
But there's a look on their faces, both when they take the ice, there's a pained look on her face, not in the physical pain, but this sense of stress and coming off the ice. I got a feeling like maybe they didn't think they had done as well as they could have in that free dance. But when they're waiting for the score, there's a definite look of we expect to drop.
Yeah.
And I don't want to read too much into it.
Yeah, that's all conjecture.
It's all conjecture. I'm just reading their body language, the look on their face, the looks that she's shooting at Gleb. There's just a sense when they come off where like they think that's going to happen anyway. And when we look at the scores,
it's not by much.
It's a point in change below Guignard and Fabbri. And if the judges were trying to make things look a little better, slotting Guignard and Fabbri ahead of that team would be one of those things. They're like, well, look, they're ahead of Davis and Smolkin, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's uncharitable and could be completely out of pocket on my part, but it's weird.
And I don't think it's uncharitable in the sense that, they get a total of 194.27 here. That's really close to what they got at the Deniss 10 Memorial and about 10 points less than they got at the Trialetti Trophy
in Georgia. They were wildly
Georgia.
Overscored.
Yes, exactly. So I feel like they were right in the same vein in terms of their scoring that they should be. It was just Guignard and Fabbri were lower than they should have been.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a knock against Davis and Smolkin. It's much more focused at the weird scoring of Guignard and Fabbri.
I want to also, one other thing in weird scoring here. If we go down a couple of spots to the US's Ava Pate and Logan Bai, who did a nice job here, end up in 7th, beat their fellow Americans by 6 points, even though neither team comes out looking real great at this event. But they're strong, and it's nice. It's just not as sharp as when they won Lombardia a few weeks ago. But when they got scored on their free dance, they got a interruption violation.
Yeah, this is what I saw online, is that they had an interruption deduction in error, and the Grand Prix de France specifically put out a statement saying, due to an input error by a referee, a deduction for an interruption in access was applied by mistake to this ice dance couple. In fairness to the skaters, this input error was corrected. The total free dance score has been changed. So they got back 1 point.
Yeah. And that didn't make any difference to their placement at all. But it was one of those things that when they're in the kiss and cry, you've got this -1 deduction and just no obvious place for it. And on one level, mistakes happen.
But man, we're seeing a lot of them this season.
But we're seeing a lot. And, and we saw a lot of them in camera angles at this event.
Oh my God. Let's not even go into that.
Oh my gosh. Very frustrated. I mean, beautiful production value in some ways, but gosh, the choices in camera angles made me crazy. But when you are at a major competition like this and you let a full 1-point deduction slide with nobody catching that before it hits, we've already had several problems with this season.
Over and over again.
Over and over, we're seeing it. And there's also a potential one in the women's. So it's just so bizarre that we're already seeing so many little mistakes go through where things aren't getting called correctly. And, you're getting a slip of a finger where somebody just hit a bizarre deduction on somebody, and at least that got corrected. So when you're looking at an event that the scoring already feels weird, and then you're also seeing the technical judges screw up in really weird ways, it doesn't give a lot of confidence in the teams that are scoring these things.
This competition didn't give me a ton of confidence in general, but I actually think like you said, we've talked about this one a lot.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions. We're going to be doing a lot of homework over the next few days because I want to understand this better. But with that said, let's move on to the women.
So on a happier note.
Yes, much happier.
Would you like to say it for me just as we go into the women's here, so I don't have to toot my own horn?
I was waiting for you to use some kind of magic button on our recording device that's going to give you some applause. So are you ready?
I don't have it. I don't have it. So no, I want you to say it. I want you to say it.
Adron picked this wild ass podium.
Yeah, that's right. I did.
He predicted that our 3 podium placements would be Ami Nakai upsetting the balance and taking gold, Kaori Sakamoto taking second, and Ryan Sumiyoshi taking the bronze.
Yeah, I think what I actually said in the preview, I definitely called Ami winning and Kaori in second. I think I called the third place position a toss-up between Ryan and the U.S.'s Isabeau Levito.
It was.
It was, because Isabeau was in third after the short, and then Ryan moved out of fourth into third after the free. I think I did say I gave the edge to Ryan, and I'm always saying don't sleep on Ryan Sumiyoshi because her programs are great this season. But yes, I saw a few people say online, who could have predicted Ami Nakai winning? And I'm like, me. I did.
He's very, very proud of himself.
I'm very proud. Yeah.
And honestly, guys, he's had a rough week, so please give him all the applause.
The rest of the podiums, we have some big misses on, but I felt good about this one. Watching Ami Nakai at Lombardia Trophy and just how exceptional she was there, the energy that she brings to the ice. I love these programs. And I was like, if she can land those triple axels, she's going to be so hard to beat. And when she came out in that short program, she lands a perfect triple axel to start off with.
Stunning.
It's absolutely textbook perfect. It's exactly what you want it to look like. It's a flawless short program, right? It is so beautiful. The outfit's so cute. She is selling through that whole thing. She's everything you want in that moment, right?
Sparkles. And I mean, she got a 78 on this program. That's a staggeringly high score. She looked shocked. Yeah. I don't even have words, but yes, I wanted to kind of nitpick at it and be like, that might be a little too much. And you're looking at me like I'm crazy. You're like, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Don't argue that.
I was like, it was perfect. And she had a triple axel in the short. This is for the people who complain about the lack of ultra Cs in women's skating over the last few years. I feel like this is that thing that you're looking for, right? You're looking for those big elements executed well, but without sacrificing any of the rest of the program.
Yeah.
Both of these programs are beautifully choreographed. They amplify the exuberant charisma that Ami Nakai has. She has this, like you said, glittering, big, bright personality. She's one of those people that I think just seems extremely likable. She shows up on the ice and you want to root for her. This is her Grand Prix debut in her first senior season.
Yeah.
And she comes out and dominates it. Now, what we see sometimes from younger skaters is they peak too early and then they fall off as the season goes by because they are used to training for juniors, where juniors, like the Grand Prix season starts a lot sooner. And so they'd be further along at this point. But that short program is extraordinary. And then her free skate is beautiful. There are a few tiny issues in it. The triple axel isn't perfect, but she still lands it.
And it's still fully rotated.
Yes. And there are a couple other places where things, could be improved a little bit. But she gets a 149.08 in the free.
Staggeringly high again.
Yes.
I mean, she was in tears. She looked absolutely gobsmacked, as did her coach. They just kept staring at the screen like, is that a real number?
Yeah.
It was adorable. And it was really, really sweet to see. Like, it obviously was astonishing, especially whenever you're going against Kaori Sakamoto, who was gorgeous here.
Yeah. So let's put some things into comparison here. So Ami Nakai wins with a 227.08. I believe this is the highest score from a woman this season.
It is by a lot.
And yeah, that is a dominant, significant win.
Yeah.
And seeing them in the kiss and cry, staring at the numbers like they can't believe it just happened. I think they firmly thought she was going to slip into second. I think that was probably just because, they're against Kaori Sakamoto and you kind of expect that. But Kaori does really well here, but she does have a few minor issues. Nothing super significant, but when we look at the short program, 76.2, still a huge score. Most of the women would be incredibly excited to get 76.2.
And she was happy with it.
Yes, yeah. And both times that Kaori got her score, she was surprised. I got the feeling like she did not think that either of those scores was matching up with what she thought she was going to get. So however we feel about the numbers here, I think while Kaori would have wanted to be in first, I think she was also very pleased with the scores that she got. But if we look at that short program with a 76.2 and a free skate of 148.03, so 1.05 behind Ami's extraordinary free skate, and also looked incredible here. And again, not perfect and has no ultra Cs. So Kaori's ceiling's a little higher than this.
Yeah, is Ami's.
Yeah. But Ami, I don't think has as much more room to scrape out of this point-wise.
Not too much.
Sometimes you get further in the season, you go to the big events, sometimes those scores do inflate as you get to things like the Grand Prix final or Worlds or the Olympics. So it is possible for those numbers to go up. But these are very, very strong numbers, even with a second place finish from Kaori. And then, with Rion Sumiyoshi moving to that third spot, so we get a full Japan sweep of the podium, which was something that we saw a bunch of times last season.
And not surprising in the slightest. Rion has looked amazing this season so far, and this was no exception. Her short program, she was in fourth, but she still had a 71.03. Fantastic score for her in the short program. Her free skate, she did under rotate her quad toe, but landed it better than I've seen her land the attempt in a while.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see that. Had one other small error, but nothing major, and had a 145.03. Worth noting, both of those numbers are personal bests for her, as is her total score of 216.06. This is great. This is fantastic progress for Rion, and especially when you're looking at the overall, we're always using the competition within the competition. Japan's Olympic Selection Committee, I feel so bad for you because you have such an abundance of riches in your women's discipline. It is absurd. And I am heartbroken that any of these, there's 7 or 8 women at least that all deserve to be at the Olympics. And there's only 3 that will get to go. And I hate it. I hate it so much. Yeah. But they've just, all 3 made a phenomenal case that they deserve to go. But then we don't have Monochiba, Wakaba Higuchi. The list goes on.
It is bountiful, an embarrassment of riches that they do have there. With Rion, that free skate is one of my favorites of the season. I love it. I love how much she loves it. You can see it.
It's wonderful.
I also really appreciate she keeps going after that quad, even though it hasn't quite landed yet, because if she can get that cleaned up, that will make a real difference for her. So this is a wonderful podium sweep here from an extremely talented set of skaters. Now, if we look just outside of it, and we see the US's Isabel Levito. She was in third after the short, super strong short program.
Yeah, big score.
73.37. That is excellent. And she gets a 139.34 in the free. Also really strong. Outside of, I think she pops something or doubles a jump. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. She has like one fairly minor error somewhere in the program. But otherwise, she looked much more sure-footed than we've seen in a little while. Even, I mean, she's looked really good in the Challenger Series as well, but this was a very strong showing for her. And 2:12.71 is where she lands off the podium here.
Right.
2:12.71 is a strong score that would have done very well at other events.
Well, that's exactly it. It's going to be really interesting whenever you're looking at the Grand Prix final. This fourth place finish does not help her much in terms of getting there.
Yeah.
Doesn't eliminate her from contention by
Sure.
any stretch, but her score, like you said, in other Grand Prix, we're probably going to see the winning score not be that high.
Yeah.
And it's only 3 points from her total personal best,
Yeah.
which is, it's worth noting because it says you did a phenomenal job here. You just happen to be in an incredibly tough competition. And I think that for Isabeau, she has to be thinking, okay, hoping that essentially the US Fed is looking at the scores, not necessarily the placements.
Right.
Because as we've been talking about a lot, you know, you have Amber, Alyssa, Isabeau, Brady, and Sarah Everhart, kind of your five that are all going to be really the ones fighting for those 3 spots for the Olympics. Her not making the Grand Prix final is not ideal, but you could have an entire Grand Prix final that's just all Japan. It was almost that last year, except Amber, and then she won the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Which is still amazing.
Yeah.
But it's tough for Isabeau right now. And I feel like you can feel her fighting already this season, which I love to see. And she's got grit. You always have to give that to her.
I wish I liked these programs better. And
she played it safe.
yeah.
And I understand her playing it
These
safe.
are very Isabeau programs, and in an Olympic season, I get playing to your strengths.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful. I just don't love them.
I know.
And that's just a purely subjective thing as far as music goes. This is the thing I've said a lot with Isabeau is that she is an extraordinary skater and I love watching her skate. I just don't always like the choices that her team makes for her, and I wish those were better. But I think we have to really cruise through the rest of this year. But I think it's worth noting that in the 5th spot, Frances Lauren Schilt comes in here with a 189.31, well back from Isabeau in 4th. But this is a personal best for her in both the total and for the free. And a 5th place finish for Lauren is really nice here.
Especially at Grand Prix de France. Like, she's in her home country. This is a big deal. It obviously meant a lot to her and the crowd. That alone was just very heartwarming to see. So happy for her. I do also want to mention we did see improvement from Cheon Kim here because she looked really rough at her first international challenger event.
Yeah, I think that was Nepola.
Yeah. And here she was still in 6th in the short and in the free. And they weren't perfect, but big step forward for her.
Yeah.
So
and she made a coaching change this year, which
Yeah.
is a wild thing to do in the Olympic season. But she really looks extremely comfortable with her new coaches. Like, there's just it feels like a weight off of her shoulders. Like,
yeah, she looks lighter in some way.
Yeah. And so even though she's very clearly coming back from some kind of injury and
I think she said it was an ankle injury.
Yeah, which makes sense from what we saw at Nepola. She seemed happy enough with these scores. It looked on par with what they were expecting. And, you know, I've said it plenty of times before, like, Cheon's one of my favorite skaters. I love her style. I really appreciate what she brings to the ice. I hope that she can get back to that level that she was, say, last year at 4 continents. She should be a contender coming to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And she was also here against Jia Shin from Korea and also Young Yu in our first time in seeing her. And so this is the Koreans also kind of jockeying for the position of who's going to go to the Olympics for them and also just to represent them throughout this whole season. So even though she wasn't at her best, you know, she comes out ahead of the ingenue of the moment for Korea in juniors over the last handful of seasons. And Young Yu, who was very clearly nervous and was just trying to get her feet back underneath her after being out of competition for the last year.
Let's keep us rolling and move on to the Paris competition, where we saw the rematch between Miura and Kihara and Stellato, Dudek, and Deschamps. And really, I don't think anyone's surprised considering what we've seen so far this season. Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara just destroyed everything in their wake in both programs. They looked so strong, so confident, so fast. I am never going to be over that, and took this competition with a 2:19.15.
This is the competition that most shook out the way I think everybody kind of would have expected it to.
Yes.
Miura and Kihara are terrific. Their short program is dynamite. I mean, it's just
so good.
It's so good. It's so good. It's a very lived in program and they have an advantage with that, but they've also tweaked it a little bit, and I think anyway, and it just hits. It's just so good. And that free skate looked phenomenal. And, you know, again, like their ceiling is higher than this. Like there are still some little errors, but overall they are looking really, really good. The only thing I worry about is Ryuichi coming off the ice after the free and constantly looking like he's out of air.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. These competitions are really, really demanding.
And the pairs guys always look half dead when they leave the ice.
I mean, the physical demands on them to do these programs is just completely inane, right? Like,
yes.
I mean, he ends the program with her in an overhead press. That is nuts. But it doesn't change that I worry about all of these people and their health just coming off the ice. We've noticed several skaters so far this season just struggling to breathe when they got done, and stuff like that always kind of bothers me because I always think of them as people first, not as athletes.
Yes.
And I just worry about their well-being. However, they dominated here. It's a 2:19.15, like you said. You know, they're 20 points above the Canadians, and seeing how well the Georgians got scored at the home cooking event last season or last weekend, you know, seeing a really strong performance here is super nice. And again, with no offense to the Georgian team who were terrific at the event, but the numbers were like completely nuts.
Outrageous.
Yeah. I think more worth discussion here is just Deanna and Max, looking at them in the second place here, because I think that short program,
phenomenal.
So good.
And they killed it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that assisted backflip. I'm still not over it. I know we talked about it at the John Nix Challenge. It was better here. It was exactly on the right crescendo of music.
Yeah, it fit the beat perfectly. And I think that, you know, backflips are always this point of contention between people who find it this exciting new thing that can be done in the programs and other people who just think it's a trick and that it doesn't add, it's just a gymnastic element that doesn't add anything artistically. For me, how it's placed in the program,
yes,
how it hits on the music, how it amplifies the energy of that moment really works.
I agree 100%. And also, Deanna Stellato Dudek, you are my hero. You're a badass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't get past the fact that it's a 42-year-old woman out there doing a backflip on knife shoes, right? Like that's
incredible.
That's nuts. And I just love everything about it. I thought that the program looked terrific on them. The free skate was a mess. And honestly, the fact that they held the second place is in a lot of ways a testament to how strong that the short program was, because they popped the triple twist and single it, which is just
it sounds
bizarre.
Like it was a crazy mistiming error that happened, where I saw Deanna talk about it after, where she said she was, because of where her foot was placed in relation to Max's boot, she couldn't get the split up. So it was over. It kind of was over before it began. And it was a complete fluke. And you kind of knew that going in. There's no way. This is Deanna and Max. Their twist is astonishingly good.
Yeah.
But the timing just was wrong at that moment. But also, I mean, that was not the only problem they had in the program.
Right. There's several other mechanical issues in there and places where it didn't come together. Max in general just looked like he was having a hard time keeping his feet through a lot of this too. Like the side-by-sides were a real struggle for him. And so I think that in the free, both of them are just not quite calibrated correctly.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot that's extremely good about it.
But I think that in the end, I thought the free skate score was probably a little kind to them considering what they delivered.
It's really just because of the quality of what they do, I think. Like they bring so much to what they do, to every movement. I mean, nobody has the toe point, the extension, the like that Deanna has in the air, things like that. Where it's like they are so good at projecting emotion on the ice. Like, I think that helps their score immensely. But yeah, it was a little bit of the world champion bonus, a little.
It does feel a little bit like that. I think it should have been a little tighter with the third place team. So the Hungarians, though, with Maria Pavlova and Alexei Svievchenko, we've talked a lot about how this is a team that it seems like the fourth place team all the time, right? Like,
and they're third.
and they're
So that's
third
good.
here, right? This is a progression. They got on the podium.
And they have got on Grand Prix podiums
Sure,
before,
but
yeah.
it just seems like they're just one of those very consistently land in sort of fourth place in previous Grand Prix. One thing that I'm just really happy to see with this team is a restyle of them.
Yes.
I think because they were doing that Pirates of the Caribbean program last year, and Alexi's hair was long and he had facial hair and he just kind of, it looked weird. And I didn't like the aesthetic of what they were projecting and kind of the campiness of that particular program. And it looked messy through a lot of the season. Here, we're seeing them presented in a very different way. It's maybe a little bit more traditional and a little bit more cleaned up, but I did like it on them.
And the way I was perceiving it was they got grown-up programs. Like, it's like something evolved and their packaging has changed. The music style is a little bit more traditional, but I did feel like it worked on them. And frankly, like they were kind of stuck in a rut. And so I like seeing them try something else. And I hope they continue to evolve and kind of find somewhere in between that feels like it is them, but a more polished version of them. But this feels like a step in a good direction.
In the Olympic season, this is a good move for them.
For sure.
And they're always one of those teams that they're a spoiler team, you know, like if you put them against, you know, all of the top competitors, they're towards the back of the pack of them, but you can't ever count them out because they are a good team.
They are a very good team. They're very strong.
And then just a few bits and pieces down the rest of this line. In fourth, we get McBeath and Parkman from the U.S. And this is, you know, you have a couple of U.S. teams here because you have Shin and Anaj in here as well. And they go 4-5. I thought that McBeath and Parkman looked pretty consistent with how they normally do, which is like very strong, very competent skating, handful of mistakes, not a lot of like artistic identity, but like some really, really good pairs abilities. I thought Shin and Naj looked a lot better here.
Much better.
Some of the previous outings that we've seen this season.
Yeah, I feel like we're starting to see them come together. I can't remember if it was Audrey or Balazs that said it, but they said that they're starting to see on competitive ice what they're doing at home. So I think those things are starting to come together. And it's honestly, if that continues, then they're in really good shape going into nationals, because every competition we've seen with them, I think this is the third
so far. Yeah.
Every time they have continuously improved.
Yeah, because when we saw them at
good.
John Nix, they were a mess.
Yeah.
And then they went to the Olympic qualifier. They didn't manage to lock a qualifying spot, but they looked much improved. Better. And here, even though there's still some places where things came down wrong and, you know, they had some problems, there's a beautiful thrown triple towards the end of their free skate where they just nail it. And you can see Audrey's face just come alive when it hits, because you know that like that's got to be that satisfaction of like you've been working so hard, this has been happening in practice, but it's not happening on competitive ice, and some of it finally does start to come together. And when they got their scores in the end, you could see that the growth that they'd had and that improvement in what they got really made them happy and made their team happy. So that's the level of improvement we need to keep seeing out of this team as things really heat up amongst the American pairs.
Agreed. Let's finish up with the men's competition, which, to absolutely no one's surprise, Ilia Malinin dominated completely.
Yeah, Ilia looked fantastic here. I mean,
I don't know if there's a lot more to say other than he got a 321 and it was massive.
Yeah,
like everything he did felt lived in already. And he came in here, at least what he was saying, that he was had dealt with a few minor injuries recently and just wasn't totally sure he should even be doing the Grand Prix, and felt good enough to go. And with the help of the US Fed's like medical team and his personal team, just getting him ready, bringing down, which is a ridiculous statement, the level of difficulty in his programs, which is so silly to say considering he did 5 quads in his free skate. It's not full capability in his programs for the technical side.
Well, and I was happy to see that because
me too, because I thought the programs were better.
Yeah, like Ilia doesn't need to throw 7 quad programs. I know that he wants to do that because he's Ilia, but his free skate having 5 and choosing to do triple axles and a triple loop instead of pushing, you know, his threshold and throwing those as quads meant that he had a cleaner, better paced program
that just also sold much better.
Yeah.
Like he was presented better.
I think I have maybe a bit of a different feeling on that with the free, but I'm going to step back real quick just on the short, just because we saw him skate these at Lombardia, and I thought that they were good there, but kind of messy. He was far more assured here. I think the short looked much more complete, like a better overall package, and a very confident Ilia. That's just Ilia. When he walks out and he knows that he's got it wrapped up, that's what it felt like.
Yes.
He said that he was actually quite nervous before the free. What I think that you get in the free is, like I was saying, a more measured, more careful program and slightly watered down. It does look more refined than, say, what we saw him at Lombardia, but there's an energy, particularly in the bottom third, but kind of through the whole program that he had at Lombardia, that I think wasn't there. I think because he was playing more careful, and if he is skating injured, that makes a lot of sense. But I felt like that sort of ambient energy that adds an artistic crispness for him wasn't there in this free. But instead what we got was an extremely well, nearly flawlessly skated program that maybe didn't have as much artistic pop, but undeniably powerful.
I wouldn't call it artistic pop. I'd say adrenaline.
Sure.
To me.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that, because like when he's going for broke and he just does absolutely everything, for better or worse, there is like an electricity to him, especially in person, but like in general, it's undeniable. It's that, like, I can't even describe it. There is something like charismatic that happens.
I can describe it by pointing to the girls in the audience who were sobbing at the end of his programs. There were multiple young women weeping in the stands when the programs got done. That's some BTS boy band like kind of stuff to see.
Yeah, it is.
People literally, sometimes, I mean, programs have made me cry. I have talked plenty before that, like, my Mihara like tears my heart out every time that I see her skate. And that is a natural emotional reaction to beautiful art.
Yes.
But then there is like the rock star, pop star thing. And when you see young women weeping in the audience because they just saw Ilia Malinin skate a fantastic program, that's some next level stuff. And we've talked a lot about when you see him in person, there's something different. And you know, the people who don't particularly care for him stylistically, totally understandable.
Totally get it.
But will often be like, I don't get it. I don't know why anybody thinks that he's so special. And I'm like, see it in person. You will understand it is special.
It's nuts. Like, his energy is just something out of this world. And
as are his outfits.
His outfits are definitely pushing boundaries. And to be honest, I love it. Like, just go for it. Who cares? Have a great time. I don't love the short program one. That one's like just a little bit far out for me. I think the free skate program, it's like a bedazzled corset and black puffy sleeves, and I am here for it. It's drama in the most campy way, and I love it.
I don't think it's camp. I think it's an attempt
style.
at high, like, haute couture. You know, as I understand it, I think a Japanese
I believe so.
Fashion designer did that one for him or something. I'm not entirely. I'd have to, don't quote me on it. I could not be correct on that. But for a guy who in the past has put his foot in his mouth talking about being a straight man in skating,
oh my gosh, that,
you know, for somebody like that to then evolve into this skater who's wearing things that are not going to be your traditional by the book kind of masculine outfits, but instead are more high fashion, are pushing kind of the boundary in
that's a fair point.
In a sport that has had some extremely flamboyant outfits and some often very silly things. I'm going to look at the guy who skated in a Minions outfit a couple of weeks ago. To go out there as the top guy and then wear that kind of look, and
he's wearing his game.
Yes, and he's coming off the plane looking like he's a fashion icon, right? Ilia is presenting a vision of himself in everything that he does, and it's very crafted, it's very intentional, and it's a very unique vision for a young guy that I don't think that a few years ago anybody would have expected to have that level of like consideration for anything off the ice.
Yeah. And I mean, some of his fashion choices I find questionable, but also I am not like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. I'm not sure how old he is now.
Yeah.
But I am not this young man who is on a journey and is learning about himself as he goes, which you hear him even saying in the music for his free skate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. in general, dominant win. It's
looked immaculate.
I'll be very curious to see if he does actually continue with the Grand Prix, if they're worried about it. Because the thing I'm always worried about with Ilia is that he is pushing the boundaries of what a man can do in this sport in such a wild way. I'm always worried that he's going to hurt himself in the run up to the Olympics. That's always my fear. So if that means he has to pull out at some point just to save his body, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, because him pushing it and getting worse would be a bad thing. But based on what he did here, it was exceptional.
He's got a couple weeks because he's at Skate Canada, so we'll see. But I actually think the best and most exciting person at this competition was Adam Xiaohemfa. And I know we talked about in the preview that we were real worried. Like, we didn't put him in our podium predictions because we were afraid to.
We didn't want to jinx it.
Yeah, because we have any control over that.
Yeah, but, well, you know, every sports fan has some level of superstition, right?
Yes.
Even down to like the thing you never want to hear a commentator is right before a jump to say like, oh, they've been perfect so far in this, you know, or whatever it is. And then they immediately fall down. You know, it always feels like that kind of thing. We love Adam so much, and he's been so rough so far.
Yeah.
It would be hard to look at what he had done in his first couple of outings and say, okay, here's somebody who's going to be ready at this moment. So, you know, we leaned on not putting him on that podium, but Adam did what we wanted him to do, which was finally realize these programs, particularly that free skate.
Yes, because in the short, he still had that kind of wild nature we've been seeing. It was a little better. He had about an 84 and was in 5th. So he was still well within striking distance. So he skated well enough to stay in contention, which is something that Adam's very good at doing in the short program.
Yes.
But that free skate was magic. It was so good.
Phenomenal.
So
good.
Brilliant. And he said that it was the first time in a while where he has let himself just go out and have fun as opposed to thinking about points and the score. And please do that every time, Adam, because from the first quad lutz on, there's like one jumping pass that looks scratchy, and that's about it. It all looked so much more like what we've seen from him in his best moments, and took a program that I've been questioning this season into one that I'm just so excited to see again. It was brilliant.
The excitement from the French audience when he took the ice for the free, you got to think that gave him a real boost, because they were already lit for all of their skaters. I mean, they showed so much support for every one of the French skaters who showed up here. But when Adam came out for his free, the place went nuts, and you could see the impact on him. You could see the look on his face change from, okay, I have to be really in the moment and ready to do this, to this like kind of slow smile that comes over his face. And just judging from body language, he looked like he unclenched a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the program started, and it was beautiful. Adam is my favorite male skater of this era.
Yeah.
Artistically, he hits all the buttons of what I want to see. I love his jump technique when it works. I think that his point of view is just so interesting. He makes some weird choices once in a while, and that doesn't always work out in his favor. But when he's on, he's magic. And knowing a couple of seasons ago how he did the impossible, coming back from 19th to 3rd at Worlds, we know that Adam is capable of rocketing his way back onto a podium after a rough skate. So him being in 5th is nothing, to make the jump up here. Now, he comes out with a 280.95. Great score, super strong, and easily the best thing that he's done so far this season. But that is 40 some odd points back from Ilia.
That doesn't even seem fair to say.
I know, it's absolutely nuts. But that free is so artistically complete and so beautifully put together and was phenomenal. And so I was so excited to see him return to form. Yeah. But also like really happy for the 3rd place finish of Nika Agazzi from Georgia, who, like we were talking about with his Georgian compatriots in ice dance, his 3rd back-to-back program jumping from country to country. And that is hard.
It's really hard.
I was really worried about what kind of toll this would take on Nika. And he is not anywhere near as complete a skater as either Adam or Ilia. Artistically, there's a lot that's left to be desired, but his jumps when they land are gorgeous. He has really strong technical technique. And even when he makes some mistakes, he tends to have enough technical content that can keep him ahead of a lot of the rest of the guys. He does have some errors in the free skate that left him in fourth after the free, but still in third overall. But he was so excited because he's much like the Hungarians we were talking about in Paris, he's always been like in fourth place.
Yeah.
He's never gotten on a Grand Prix podium before. And so even though Adam jumps up past him, that podium of Ilia and Adam and Nika is really fun because those three guys are all friends. We know that Nika had been training in Italy with Adam for a while this summer, and we saw Nika appear in Adam's videos and talk about how much he was enjoying that experience. And you can see that difference with him.
For sure. And I know that everyone got a little bit of a jump scare every time they saw a Thierry on the boards, but I tried to blank that out and just appreciate that like Nika's his own person and he really did a good job. He earned it and seemed genuinely really touched by the French audience and how warm they were to him. He got a Deadpool,
so
little
cute.
stuffy, and looked like he was genuinely just obviously excited to get it. It was very cute. So I am happy for him.
Yeah, it was really great. But also, even though he doesn't land on the podium here, Lucas Bridgeke's fourth place performance is really nice because he was in seventh after the short, but then he had the third place free skate to get him in that fourth place position. You know, Lucas won Europeans last year. I really liked both of his programs, particularly his free here. I know we're a little split on the free, but I like it a lot.
He looks like Aladdin. And I don't love that on Swiss Lucas Bridgke, but I love his short program. I actually think his short program is one of the best I've seen him do.
Yeah.
So every time I see that come up, I'm real excited. And I really want to see that clean because it really seems like it fits his personality just perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that he skated the free skate beautifully. I just don't love it. But I'm just going to let that go for now and just be happy for Lucas because he always seems like a delight.
My feeling on the free is that I think it starts really strong. The arm articulations are super sharp. And
he's showing off the guns.
Yeah. Apparently he does some push-ups before he goes out on the ice so he can make sure that the gun shows on full display. But the sharpness of that program dulls down as the rest of it goes along and he's trying to hit all those jumps. And by the end, it feels like the identity slips away out of the choreography. And I think that's something that needs to be tightened up. Lucas is a guy who's always walking that edge of cultural appropriation in his programs.
Taste level a little bit.
But it's always done with such a genuine appreciation. I can't speak for the cultures that he's borrowing from, but we could also look at Laurent and Lagac and their Egyptian program and ice dance and stuff.
And I love that program.
Yeah, there's always questions around those things, but in general, I thought Lucas looked really good. And then we can just, I think, kind of just rapid fire down the rest of the guys here because I think there are a couple of interesting notes.
I want to give big props to Francois Pitot. Did a beautiful job. He landed in fifth here. I thought both his programs looked stellar, and he's just been making some nice moves forward this season. So cheers to Francois Pitot.
Yeah, a guy that at the beginning of the season, I don't think I would have been thinking about a whole lot, but every time that I see him, he looks strong. That Beatles free skate is
really
super
good.
nice, and
really
it was real sharp and a real crowd pleaser in front of the hometown crowd.
The competition within a competition again, Andrew Torgashev versus Max Naumov. In the short, the edge went to Max. In the free, Torgs came through with a very strong free skate. However, Max wasn't that far behind, and their scores only different by about 6 points. So they're staying fairly close in that wish for the third place spot for the Olympics. I really feel like those two are going to be kind of dancing back and forth for a while through this season. And I got to admit, Torgs looked great here, but...
Well, he looked great in the free.
Yeah, he
was last after the short.
He were a mess in the short. He was pretty good in the free. Max's short is one of my favorites this season. It is gorgeous. It's a tribute to his family. His free... I love his fight. He never gave up. My favorite thing about him is that you watch that free. He talked about it in the mix zone that he has had problems with his salves, and that's why he didn't throw a quad in the short. And even with that in mind, he went for both of his quad salves in the free skate. Both were messy. They didn't land perfectly. A lot of his jumps weren't perfect, but he went for all of them. And I give him mad props for that.
Again, when we're sort of evaluating Torgashev versus Naumov is consistent here. His short and his free are both imperfect, but they're both very nicely skated, and he kind of just stays right in the zone across both programs. He's 9th after the short, he's 8th after the free, 9th overall, right in there. Torgashev is bottom of the barrel after the short program. He has a complete nightmare short.
Yeah.
But then his free is so much stronger. The jumps hit. And honestly, you don't watch a Torgashev program for the jumps. You watch it for the footwork sequence.
For sure.
And the footwork sequence in the free skate is stellar.
Yeah.
He comes at that with so much passion, so much fight, so much articulation. It's dynamic and powerful and fast.
Yeah.
Just the intensity of it is totally different from a lot of what the other guys were bringing to the ice. And I do think it's really worth noting that like a bunch of these guys are less than a point from each other.
Yeah.
When you look at Pitot at 233.98 and then all the way down to Mihail Selevko in 8th at 232.17, there's 1 point of difference really between Pitot, Torgashev, Saboy, and Selevko, and then just a couple points down to Namov. So all those guys like are one cleaned up movement from each other.
And then you have Cal Miura in 10th. He was 3rd in the short, had one mistake, but overall looked killer and had the worst free skate I've seen from him. It was devastating.
It was really hard to watch.
It was absolutely awful to watch.
This is the thing that's always an issue with Cal is that his potential is incredible.
I love Cal.
He has artistry, he has passion, he has intensity, he has a style that is very much his own. He has jumps that can look spectacular. And go back a couple of seasons and watch him win 4 continents and watch him then win Junior Worlds. He has the goods, he has the ability, but he's wild. And he cannot keep everything under control. And I don't know what it is with his training and with his preparation that leaves him in this position because he has everything. He's one of those guys that breaks my heart because I really enjoy his skating and I hate seeing him come apart. But watching him in the kiss and cry after that free skate, the shocked look of his coach, him basically hiding behind his hair because you could see that he was trying to hold back the emotion, that was brutal. And this is just a guy that he should be better than this because he has that ability.
Well, and I've seen a few people online talk about the fact they think he's injured. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Again, if any of our lovely listeners know and want to share that, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking into it because that would at least make more sense. But then if he's injured, why is he here? Like he should not be competing. He needs to recover, especially in an Olympic season. So it is, I get it. Those 3 spots in Japan are going to be extremely tight between a lot of guys. Really, Yuma Kageyama is the only one that is of course we're sending Yuma Kageyama.
Yeah, that's the one that's locked up, but everything else is a question mark.
Crapshoot.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that are all maybes for that. So I get he's trying to build points and trying to get his numbers up, but if he's injured, that's a terrible choice. And his team should be holding him back from that. So I don't know what's going on, but I send lots of hugs and hope towards Cal because I know he can do a lot better than this.
And I think that, when you talk about both him and like the potential is he injured? We don't know. Ilia has some injuries and them trying to decide whether or not he would be on the Grand Prix. We know there are several other skaters who have actually pulled out of the Grand Prix. We know that Kimi Rapond has exited the Grand Prix for this season because of injury. Nina Petrikina, like doctors said that she needed to have some sort of procedure and that she was going to be off the ice after we saw her have a really disappointing performance at Nepola. And I feel like there's somebody else that
Nina Pizzaroni.
Oh, Nina Pizzaroni, yes, just also exited the Grand Prix because of injury. And I think that probably has something to do with her fracturing her foot over the summer. But that's in the women's, a lot of really high level competitors who we are just not going to see, with all of them having the hope of being in good enough shape to compete later in the season for things at like 4 continents, their national championships, and to make their way to the Olympics. So, oh God, I hate losing some of my favorite competitors that way. And I would hate to see somebody like Cow duck out. But if he's injured, I would rather have him heal and then show up later in the season in better shape because this was rough to see.
It was extremely rough. Well, before we totally exit the Grand Prix de France, we have one more item of business, which is Gold in Your Heart. Who's Gold in Your Heart?
I mean, it's incredibly obvious. It's Adam Chalenfant. That skates everything. I mean, it's that's everything I've been wanting to see from him. It was extraordinary and is one of my highlights from the event. I absolutely loved it. If I had an asterisk, it would be for Rion Sumiyoshi because, again, her free skate is gorgeous and I enjoy it so much. But Adam's comeback was thrilling and one of the absolute highlights of the weekend for me.
Oh, absolutely the same. Adam Shaoham-Fa wins everything. His joy, whenever you could see, whenever he was coming out for his medal and the entire crowd just going, Adam, Adam, Adam. It was just very heartwarming. And I hope, please, universe, I hope he just carries this forward with him and it continues on because he should be amongst those competing for a medal at the Olympics.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
sure. Well, a few little tidbits before we wrap up for the week. It's worth talking about the fact that there was a coaching change for Deniss Vasilyevs. He has left the Skating School of Switzerland and Stéphane Lambiel, which is really sad. But also, I understand that he is looking for change. He's been having a lot of struggles with his Latvian federation and was feeling a little sort of protected. I think that's kind of what he described in Champray with Stéphane, and needed a challenge and needs to kind of figure things out for himself. So they posted a really supportive message about his leaving, and I just want to send lots of support his way because we all love Deniss. We're going to see him at Cup of China next week, and I look forward to the next chapter for him, and I hope it's a good one.
Yeah, there's been some unfortunate stuff coming out of the Latvian Federation. Earlier in the summer, we saw news that Sofia Stepchenko from Latvia had essentially decided to sit out this season, in part because of funding issues, but also apparently because of mental health stress. She had launched a GoFundMe trying to help raise funds for her to be able to continue her training with Stéphane Lambiel's camp. And it sounds like whatever support that she had been getting from her federation wasn't coming through. But then later on, we were also seeing news stories about a number of skaters in that federation lodging complaints against somebody within the Latvian Federation. I don't know all of the specifics about that, and so I don't want to comment a whole lot more about it because I'm not educated enough on it. But it just seems like between that and the stuff that Deniss was saying and him making this shift in the season, I just don't know what's going on with that federation. It's in a bizarre place. But I can understand Deniss Vasilyevs wanting a new challenge to maybe grow him in this season because he and Stéphane have skated alongside each other for so long.
They're peers more than coach and student.
Right. And that dynamic may just not be pushing him anymore. You have a guy who's one of the best artistic skaters within the men.
Oh, for sure.
But not one of the best jumpers. And if he wants to be really competitive this season, he needs to be able to compete on that technical level, because what we constantly see from Deniss is extraordinary crowd-pleasing skates that just don't get the big numbers. I think he did really well at Worlds, even though he couldn't compete with the guys with the biggest arsenals of jumps. And he's one of the most fun guys to watch on the ice. So I'm hoping that this is a healthy change for him, whatever it means, whatever the reasons behind all of that. And I hope that switch is a healthy choice and not one of complete necessity.
Yeah, same. And I want to send him lots of support and looking forward to see him. And then to kind of wrap us up, talk a little bit about the Cup of China, which is our next competition in the Grand Prix, where we are going to get, apparently, according to all websites and news sources, our first look at Sui and Han.
Yeah.
Hard left.
It's, I don't know what to expect here. I am both excited to see Sui and Han because I love them as a team in their, original competitive capacity. They were an extraordinary team. Obviously, they're Olympic reigning champions. However, I don't love teams walking into the Grand Prix with no recent competitions underneath their belts. This is a ongoing refrain all the time. It's a thing about this sport that I don't like. I get that China hosting this event gets to have a couple of spots where they can kind of slot in whoever they want, regardless of their minimums or whatever. And we see that federations do this all the time, where you bring in like kind of just getting experience for lower level skaters and stuff. But
that's not the only reason they've been assigned to two.
Right.
So,
yeah. So, but my biggest worry about it is just Han's health and whether he is actually in the competitive shape to do this again, because there is this sense of him being kind of
dragged back in.
Yeah. Dragged back in, even though Sway had a different partner for a little while that obviously didn't work out. And it just, outside looking in, feels like China saying, we need somebody to be competitive here, and we're bringing you back in. You're being drafted back into this regardless of whether he wanted to or not. And I have no idea. This is just,
he may be thrilled and in really great health. We don't know because we haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, we knew Sway wanted back in,
yes,
but Han always felt like a question mark. So who knows? We'll see what happens there.
I am also, in that pairs competition, really, really curious to see the competition between Metlakina and Barolava, who we just talked about winning the Trioletti Trophy.
With a too big a score, but still a great performance.
Exactly.
And they were really, really good there.
But Conte and Machi are also here. And the last time we saw them, they looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
So seeing those two against each other is going to be very interesting. In the women's competition, we're going to see the two top American women head to head. So Amber Glenn and Alyssa Liu are both here.
And Alyssa, she's had to change her short program because of outside factors revolving around the original music that was part of that. So we're going to see her go back to that Loewe, however you say the singer's name. And that was an incredible program. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Not ideal, obviously, but she hasn't looked perfect in her first outing of the season. So I'm hoping that we're going to see her leveled up a little bit more. Amber has already won an event and is already looking pretty strong. Her triple axel is looking extraordinary. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the two of them do here.
We're also going to see a showdown between Heian Lee and Jia Shin here. Since Korea only has 2 Olympic spots, them competing against each other anywhere is going to be of note, since they're fighting for probably one of those spots along with Cheon Kim.
Heian has already had a pretty notable win at the Deniss 10 and a couple of other events underneath her belt, and has been looking pretty strong so far. So that's definitely heating up.
In ice dance, we'll see Chak and Bates. In the men's, we'll see Shaidarov and Junwon Cha. And obviously lots more, but we've been talking a long time. So maybe we'll talk about that more next week.
Yeah.
After it's over.
I think my biggest curiosity at this one is Chak and Bates, because we have no idea what those programs are going to look like.
No.
We have no idea what they're going to look like in the wake of Gilo's enormous score here. And we know with Chak and Bates, they tend to come out the gate with programs that are already intricate and unique and cleverly designed, but they often take rounds of iteration until they become their final form. And strategically, that could be difficult this season, considering Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron just showed up and got one of the biggest scores that we've seen in a long time. So yeah, I'll be very fascinated to see what that looks like, and nervous too, I think is probably fair to say.
I think I'll be very nervous.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Well, in the comments, let us know, what were your feelings about this event? How did you feel, particularly about ice dance, but all of it? But obviously ice dance is the thing that's kind of on everybody's mind, and the way all that scoring looked. The thing that I didn't mention in there was also, somebody pointed out that Rion Sumiyoshi had a bizarre PCS call from somebody where they gave her like a 2 on her components from a judge who had otherwise rated her well in her skating skills and stuff. And it just seemed like somebody hit the wrong button. So again, we were talking about like little mistakes that show up when you view the protocols and you realize that the judges are occasionally just making an error and nobody's catching it.
Yeah.
And when everybody else is giving you 8.5 or 8.75 and somebody gives you a 2, that seems like a question mark that should have been caught, right?
Yeah.
And feels kind of odd. So hopefully we will see more consistent scoring and see some course corrections. But man, I don't feel good about it.
Me neither.
I feel like the trend is pretty bad this season, and I don't want to spend that much time complaining. That took us like a half hour to cover that nonsense.
There's a lot of complaining.
So yeah, anyway, tell us how you felt about that. Tell us who you're excited about. We didn't pick podiums for this next one, and we're not gonna. So I'm just gonna ride on my win from the women's event and this one, and hope for the best. And until next time, for Choreography, I'm Adron Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
And we will see you after the next Grand Prix event.
Ciao.